Welcome back to the Unanimous Decision Podcast. I am your host, DPalm. Follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. Follow the show on Twitter at UDPod. Follow the entire MTR network at the MTR network. You found us, don't lose us. Subscribe in the iTunes store. Subscribe on Spotify. Subscribe anywhere podcasts are given away for absolutely free. Leave that 5-star review in iTunes. We'll read every one of those on the air. You'll leave 4 stars. It won't get read because I feel like you're doing that on purpose to aggravate me. And guess what? It worked by not having your words read. I just realized what today was, and I think I should go check these reviews really quickly before we get too deep into the podcast because I know why you're listening, and I know what you're here to listen to, and here to listen. You get angry about Georgia and talk about LSU game, and I'm not going to do that yet. I'm not some monkey. You don't put a quarter in the jukebox and I play your favorite song. I'm sorry. We've got a whole show planned, and we're going to do that show before we get to the events of yesterday. Now, I have on the show today, I think you might be my favorite guest ever because, I'll be honest, if I had another guest on who was like deeper into sports, I'd just be getting trolled for the entire hour. Like, this is the most serendipitous, like, to be honest, like, we scheduled this like a month ago.
Yeah,
I,
I honestly have no idea what you were talking about.
it's the best show ever. Run credits. It gets no better than this. We're done here today. We have Shanna. You know her from the MTR Network. You know her from Super Tuesday. You know her from damn near everything. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's early. I'm tired, but it's great.
It is early, and I thank you for being on with us. First of all, it's so fun because last week we had on Jeff, who's rolling out his first episode of his podcast, Jeff versus the World later this month. And it was interesting to hear how kind of you, me, and like the MCR crew kind of were part of his inspiration to pick up the microphone.
Mm.
And like as I've told people before, I got on the mic because I was a fan of Chris and Rod and Karen and Phenom. And that's kind of why I started recording anything. And I just lucked my way into MTR by being an annoying fan of Chris. I did want to ask, because we got one person who's kind of starting the journey last week. You're deep into it now. We talk all the time. Tell people what you review on the network and tell people kind of how you got in front of the mic.
So currently I review Black Lightning. We do the Gifted in chunks. We do Cloak and Dagger. I'm also doing Supergirl, which is not what I started doing, but it's what I moved to after Constantine ended. Um, I was listening to Rod and Karen, and Chris basically uh, was on there and he was like, "Oh, we're looking for people." And I had thought of starting my own podcast, but was did not want to do the work of like it's like honestly like I was like, I'm gonna start my own podcast, but like I guess you need like microphones and like a studio and all of these things. And I was like, that feels like a lot. And then I have to find the people who would do it with me because I knew I couldn't do it by myself. Like I needed like a regular guests and
Right.
stuff like that. And I was just like, that feels like a lot. And then Chris was like, I'm looking for people who might just be interested in covering a show. And I was like, okay, that's doable. And I just emailed him. I emailed him out of the blue. We had like one phone conversation. I absolutely remember it because it was when I was working at I used to work at a concert hall, and like I had to like do it in one of like the back rooms when like there were no artists around. Like I was just like, okay, we'll just talk on the phone. And then after that we just started covering Constantine. And I think almost like immediately after that was the first time Chris was going to Comic Con. And I
Right.
was like, because I had gone once. I went, I backdoored my way into Comic Con. I really wanted to go, and I was trying to get single day tickets. And at the same time, I was on Southwest looking up flights. So I got the flight, but then just lost the single day ticket. Like they just sold out right before. So I was like, now I have a flight to San Diego and I don't have a ticket. And at the time, I was like on Suicide Girls a lot on the message boards, and there was somebody who was like, "Hey, I have a ADA pass, and I'm allowed to have a companion. Like, does anybody need a ticket?" And I was like, "I need one day." And so I had gone, but only as a fan and only for one day. And I was like, I really want to go back to Comic Con. It's usually my birthday weekend as well. So it's like, oh, it's a fun thing to do. Um, so I was like, yeah, I definitely want to start doing that. And then I just started covering conventions as well as going to Comic Con and like the big one, and then I do like local ones too. And that's where I really started getting serious about like, oh, I can write comics. Like people write comics. I've met these people. I've talked to them. I can do this. And yeah, it's just been like this great networking thing, and one thing just leads to like one more thing,
Well,
and it
let's
becomes
talk about
bigger.
that one more thing because you are creating your own comic.
Trying. No. I am. I have this like great story. It's called Young God. I love it. I love my characters. Um, I They are always in the back of my head, and lately they're mostly in the back of my head because I haven't had time to sit down and write.
Right.
Um, because I just switched jobs, and at the same time, I dance, and we have a show coming up, and my teacher is crazy, so that's taking up all of my time right now. But yes, it's a story about this kid. He's a young um, Muslim, but not like super religious Indian boy who decides that well, doesn't decide. He finds out that he is the reincarnation of Jesus, and that kind of takes his world into a whole different place. It introduces gods and people, characters from folklore, but then also just like on a societal level, like what does that mean for this young brown boy to be associated with this religion that is very much anti that,
Right.
and also his friends. So it's like a diverse group of characters. Like there's going to be some like revelations about his friends as well. His closest friend is a black girl. Her name is Dylan. It's set in Oakland because that's where I live, and I
I was
really
going to
wanted
ask.
to, yeah, like I really, really wanted to bring Oakland like to the pages. And I have this amazing artist. Her name is Tara Simone, Teaspoon Arts on Twitter and on Tumblr, and I send her pictures of Oakland, and she like recreates them in this like beautiful way, like just far beyond what I would imagine. She's an amazing artist. So it's been really great collaborating with somebody else. And yeah, and basically this whole project, getting it started, the writing has been the easy part. The part that kind of like hit me so I started a Patreon and everything. And once I did that, it kind of hit me like, oh, this is also a business.
Right.
So that part has been hard to adjust to. So I realized I was like, oh, I need to get things copyrighted, and I need to get things, uh, I need to have a business account if I'm gonna be like taking money from people,
Yeah, yeah.
like all of those kinds of things. I already have an accountant because I don't do taxes. Like he does them. So that was already a thing. But like yeah, so getting all of those things in place as well as the creative side, I think is really really important, and it's something you don't think of even when I do talk to creators about stuff. Rarely do we ever talk about money, even though they're usually in selling me something.
Right.
So it's interesting to like, there was a learning curve for that as well.
I think it's really cool because you found something that we talk about a lot here on UDPod is kind of the intersection of passion and commerce.
Hmm.
Because like even like the NCAA model is it exploits the passion of these kids to create comics for other people. And I think it's really cool that you're still excited about your story because I know a lot of people when they met with that kind of intersection of the two, it can really sour them on their story. But that shows just how much you love this story and these characters.
Oh yeah, and then part of it too is because it is set in Oakland and it's about teenagers. I mean, that's what I do. That's what my work is. I work with teens and youth. So they constantly inspire me every day. Like every day, like they say or do something that I'm like, I want to put that in a book. So,
That's super cool. I think I'm really excited for you because I tried to co-write a comic last year and it fell apart just to communication and timing issues. But I'm so jealous of you right now. And like the last thing I need to do because I just changed jobs too. I've got all this stuff going on. The last thing I do is add something else to my plate. But I'm insanely jealous. Will you tell everyone, please, where they can give to your Patreon because I think it's a great book.
it's patreon.com/younggod. And the tiers are super low. It's like $1 to like $10, I think is like the highest. So, if you have it, I'm happy to take it and use it and use it well. My hope is to have something printed, at least the first issue by January. But what I really want to have is like the first issue printed by January and then have like the next two issues ready to go.
That's what people don't get. Like comic books, it's not cheap to do. You've got to pay artists, you've got to pay colorists, you've got to pay printing, and then yeah, it's a whole business model behind it. But like you said, check out the Patreon. You want to learn more about the project, and maybe give a little money. All right, you ready to get into the thing that you don't cover that much?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. I love, again, like I said, I'm avoiding a lot of pain by having you on right now. This is a big help for me, and we'll get to the hurt. Everyone's here to laugh at me. We'll get there, I promise. But first, we're going to talk about a story we covered last week. Khabib versus Conor. Everyone's forgetting that Khabib choked out Conor McGregor in a very satisfying ending for your boy. Even more satisfying with him climbing the cage and hitting Conor's boy, who yelled a racial epithet, as we're learning, at Khabib as soon as he choked out his friend. Khabib went to Instagram this week to address the UFC. Why didn't you fire anyone when their team attacked the bus and injured a couple of people? They could have killed someone there. Why no one says anything about insulting my homeland, religion, nation, family? Why do you have to punish my team when both teams fought? If you say that I started it, then I do not agree. I finished what he started. In any case, punish me. His teammate, whose name I'm not going to butcher on this podcast, has nothing to do with that. If you think that I'll keep silent, then you are mistaken. You canceled Zubaria's fight, and you want to dismiss him just because he hit Conor. But don't forget, it was Conor who hit another brother first. Just check the video. If you decide to fire him, you should know that you'll lose me too. We never give up on our brothers in Russia, and I will go to the end for my brother. If you still decide to fire him, don't forget to send me my broken contract. Otherwise, I'll break it myself. And then one more thing. You can keep my money that you are withholding. You are pretty busy with that. I hope it won't get stuck in your throat. We defended our honor, and this is the most important thing. We intend to go to the end. Hashtag brothers, Shanna. Now, this is one of those sports stories that I know has crept all over the mainstream. It's everywhere now. Can I just get your reaction to fighters fighting, which sounds weird, but it's what's actually happening?
So I know about this situation, obviously, because Twitter.
Sure.
But even before this situation, every single time I've ever heard about Conor McGregor, I mean, he's swagged out completely. Like every time you see him, he's just like the amount of hubris that this man has. He's that I identify with and I enjoy. But it also always seems to come with him being I don't even want to say lightweight, like just blatantly racist towards whoever he's fighting, who is usually a man of color. So that's what I know about him is his kind of blatant like racism and his taunting. And so I'm just really surprised that this is even an issue where Khabib was blamed about everything because I feel like even before this, everybody knew that Conor McGregor was a racist.
Well, and I'll say this because this is a very pro Khabib in the Situation podcast. This podcast stands behind Khabib's decisions to go into the crowd and to deliver unto these hands that poor fool. However, I understand from a liability perspective, you cannot have people going in the crowds. You can't have it.
I mean, from what I saw, there's a lot of people in the audience, especially a lot of celebrities in those first couple rows. Like, I think I saw like a picture of Chris Pratt being like, "Oh my God, like what is happening?"
Nevada was there. Like the governor of Nevada was in the stands. Like we can all ideologically and like in all our heart of hearts tell you how not wrong Khabib was. You cannot go into the stands. Full stop.
Yeah.
You just can't do it. I can't defend that part, but I get it. Like, I get it. You're right. The fact that that's what you know about Conor McGregor tells you everything you need to know about Conor McGregor. Some people will claim that he is just trucking in that racism to sell the fight, and largely I think that's what he thinks he's doing because there's parts of the fight where you can be heard saying to Khabib, it's just business, brother. But the thing about it is, even if it's just business for you, unless you're both in on the work, it's not a work. Well, unless you both know, unless you've done it. I think he and Floyd, when they did that idiotic thing last summer, I think that they were both in on the work. Khabib was never given the heads up, and that's when you cross the line from, oh, this is a fun game. And for the record, I don't think any of it's a fun game. I think it's the most disgusting basis traits of old school boxing taken into the 21st century. But it only works to build a spectacle if everyone knows that's what the purpose is.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're just being racist. And Khabib took it as just plain old racism, and you got your head kicked in for it.
And then also what I saw was a lot of people saying or repeating quotes from the past where when he does it, when him and his friends does it, there's like, oh, well, those are just, you know how Irish boys are, and they just get wild and da, 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 and you know, that's how we do things. You know, people just, you have a bit of beer and you just get wild. And like, I'm just like, well, he's acted out too, so why are we acting like this is this is beyond the pale? It's like in hockey when they fight and like, you know, one player gets reamed for it and another player doesn't. It's like, oh, this would never happen. This is a gentleman's sport. Like, what are we? It literally is like a sport where you just like punch and kick people.
This is a sport where you put your feet on people. Like, that's this sport. That's what we're talking about. And again, it could come out in 2 weeks. This is all of this was planned because Dana White's making more money off of this conversation because no one's talking about the fact that his cash cow got choked out. What we're talking about is a spectacle around his cash cow. And honestly, if they withhold Khabib's money, I think they're wrong. And if Khabib leaves, I think people are saying, oh, the UFC needs Khabib more than... No. The UFC needs Conor more than anyone else. They don't need Khabib. They'll go build the next foil for Khabib. Because 2 months ago, if you weren't deep in the UFC, you did not know Khabib's name.
I didn't.
Exactly. I barely did, and I only did that because I have friends who were much deeper in it, and I'm like, this Khabib guy's no joke. Like, apparently up till the round 3 against Conor, he had never lost a round in the UFC. Like, he was just quietly beating the shit out of people. But
as you do.
As you do. You know, not always talk about it, but as we covered with Chris a couple weeks ago, there's been this WWE-ification of UFC that doesn't work in a sport that's not scripted. You can't build these people when they can get choked out in the 4th round. Because if Khabib doesn't go in the stands, Dana White's like, oh shit, Conor can't win anymore. What do we do next? And unlike with Ronda, when Ronda was kind of a trailblazer and the game kind of passed Ronda by, this seems to be a case where time has caught up with Conor. I don't think he's still got the ability in the ring because it was not a close fight despite what any of those Conor idiots will try to tell you. All right, Shanna, I'm going to explain to you my favorite story in sports right now. And it's super – and like all things I say about this podcast, sports aren't even about sports. They're just about people. Jimmy Butler is a is a guard for the Minnesota Timberwolves. He was paid adequately this summer, but watched two younger players get paid more with more years. Jimmy Butler then announced he wanted out of Minnesota. The ownership said, get out of here then. You can go. Let's find a trade partner. His coach and general manager, who has to facilitate the trade, does not want to trade him. Jimmy Butler has not been coming to training camp and practice on Wednesday. An hour into a 2-hour practice, Jimmy Butler showed up. He then divided the team into starters and scrubs. He ran with the scrubs, and they ran the starters off the court.
Mm.
They embarrassed those two young boys that they gave all that money to. At one point, Karl-Anthony Towns, who is 4 inches taller than Jimmy Butler. Jimmy was defending him, and every time Karl-Anthony Towns got the ball, he passed it away. Earlier in the scrimmage, Karl-Anthony Towns dunked on a scrub and said, anybody can get this work. And Jimmy said, do it to me then. And he never did. After Jimmy ruined the team, Karl-Anthony Towns tried to call a team meeting afterwards and said, we got to make sure we keep our emotions in check. Reports say that no one bought it. Jimmy then, because all this is coordinated, went straight into a sit-down interview with ESPN's Rachel Nichols, explaining that the team are a bunch of chumps and that he needs to be traded, basically. This then aired at 6 p.m. Sports Center. The noise in Minnesota got so loud, they canceled practice the next day. And his coach and GM was like, that was the best practice I've ever seen. So basically, Jimmy Butler has said, I want you to trade me because you paid guys who I don't believe have any heart more than you paid me. Apparently during the scrimmage, he was screaming at the management group saying, you need me, you can't win without me. Which is true. When he got hurt last year, they were a 3 seed in the West. He came back and literally won them 3 straight games to get them barely into the playoffs as the 8 seed. They can't win without him. But for someone demanding a trade, he's creating a situation where he says, you pay guys who have no heart. He didn't prove they had no heart. The guys who had no heart are basically like, yeah, he's right, we don't have any heart. And now all these players have to deal with each other because the season starts on Tuesday.
Oh, it does? Oh, yeah. Okay. I have tickets to a game this year.
There you go.
I'm taking my mom to see the Warriors play. I live in Oakland, and also they're playing the Brooklyn Nets, and I'm from Brooklyn. It's kind of perfect.
Okay. All right, that's a perfect game. I take it on.
Yeah. Okay. Is he right? Yes. Is he petty? Yes. Like, I mean, I get that he was proving a point, but that's really messed up.
Like, but the thing about it is, like, it's like you're at a job and you're like, they won't give you a raise, but they won't. They're like, your contract's your contract. You can't leave without these penalties. You just come in and you say, I am the best person here at my job. Either give me more money or let me go find someplace that will. Like, at my heart of hearts, I get that, and maybe, just maybe, it doesn't help his trade leverage to say to the ownership, you can't win without me. It's like, why would we trade him?
Yeah.
He still works here. Like, he's gonna do his job. I think he's gonna go to the games and stuff, but an unhappy locker room does not a good team make. Like, this is, and that's the thing about the new, like, sports paradigms. People have taken it kind of to the spreadsheets, and you got these hedge fund managers running teams. But at the end of the day, you're in the people business. Like, you got to maximize these data points by maximizing them as people. And if I'm the Timberwolves, I kind of have to trade Jimmy Butler, but he's also proven that if we trade him, it's a wrap. That everything we've invested in was wrong. Like, we were wrong in giving these kids this money, and now he's put them kind of in an impossible place.
So here's the thing is that all businesses are people businesses, and that's what I think people don't understand. And then especially more so in a business like this where, you know, a team dynamic can make or break a team whether or not everybody can play.
Right.
So even if they trade him at this point, he's probably like messed up their team dynamic for the whole season. And if they keep him,
I hope they keep him. I hope they keep him because someone's getting hit. Like
Yeah, it's like
a lot
if
more to
they
the story.
see
Like
him,
there's brothers involved and girlfriends involved. There's a lot more to the story. But this is the basketball thing that's happened in the last 4 days.
yeah,
If he stays, like I don't think I'm overselling it to say someone is going to be physically attacked in the course of the season if he stays
yeah.
in Minnesota.
Because if he says they're all gonna play hard, so they might have a good season because they're gonna play hard because they're gonna constantly either be trying to like prove him wrong, like that they can win without him. But it's it's just that like yeah, someone's gonna get hurt. So, but then if he leaves too, it's like going into this season with this feeling of like, well, we're losers.
Yeah, yeah.
Sucks.
He's kind of broken their team with one widely reported and well coordinated rollout. The fact that he was able to go to practice, do this, walk out of practice into an interview that's edited for time and for sound and airs at the 6 p.m. Eastern Sports Center. I was like, who's his agent? That was brilliant. That's
It,
we.
it it's like better than any episode of Ballers ever.
I'm not gonna sit here and defend Bowers. I'd like to say I didn't hate the season much as I thought I would. Um, it's a better roll than any DC movie ever. It's more focused. It's clear. It's concise. He knows what he wants to do. I applaud the Jimmy Butler media team, and I like this last note to the story, which apparently is being refuted by Pat Riley, but it's too perfect. Apparently, this trade to Miami was almost completed last week. They had everything set up. Medical information was being shared, which is generally the last step in NBA trades. And at the last second, Tom Thibodeau said he wanted more from Pat Riley. And apparently Pat Riley called him a motherfucker. Now, I don't know if that's true. But for my world, for UDPod, that's true forever from now on. That happened. That's amazing. If you want to hear more about the NBA, our NBA season preview will be rolling out on Tuesday morning. That's Tuesday. It's going to be the 16th of October. And yeah, I know the season starts that night. Time is weird, and we ran out of time on it. I apologize. But it's coming out the morning of. And if you have a chance to place your bets, we've got some great over-under bets for you to follow. And you can bask in the fact that for the second year in a row on my own show, I lost my own contest to my best friend. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I should be rigging this thing, but I'm not. All right, I want to talk now about gymnastics. That's right, gymnastics. Simone Biles invented a new vault. She has a new move. It's going to be called the Biles when she does it in competition later this year. And if you're thinking to yourself, wait, she already has one of those, it's during the floor exercise, you're right. Because this past week, Simone Biles did a vault that no woman has ever done before. This is an event that did not require her to score points to make the national team. Spoilers, she's the best thing in the world. She's going to be on the national team. She could not show up and they'd be like, yes, Simone Biles is the captain. No questions. So, and I'm going to use, and anyone who knows more about gymnastics, I apologize because I'm going to literally read this from an article, and if it sounds wrong, then I don't know what to tell you. Biles was competing with a vault with the same entry, a round off onto the board, and a half turn on the table with only 1.5 twists. The vault she performed yesterday featured an extra twist, so she landed facing away from the vault table. In less than 12 months that she's been back in the gym full time, she's upgraded her program from Rio in all 4 events and invented and done a vault that no woman's ever done. Shanna, I know the world doesn't appreciate gymnastics but once every 4 years, but even in outside of all of that, with all that considered, this is amazing.
She is a not human. She's a different person. She's a scroll or something. But like I just remember that tweet. She like tweeted or something on Instagram. It was something where it was just like her chilling, like her having a vacation. And some woman or she was like partying or something because guess what? She's a superhuman athlete and the Olympics are over and she was like, I'm gonna hang out on a beach and party with my friends for a little bit. And some white woman, because she was white, was like, oh, this is not setting a good example, and you're a athlete and you're the highest ranked blah blah blah, and this is not setting a good example for your fans. And she was like, sit down, I am enjoying myself, and that's all I have. And then she comes back and creates something that nobody has ever done before. If anybody ever comes out their face to tell Simone Biles what she should or should not be doing, remember the headline: creates thing no one has ever done before. I love that little girl. I will fight for her.
It's absurd. This isn't even fair. Like she took a year off. She came back last November, and all 4 of her exercises, she invented 2 new things, and now and just I don't know what to say. Like I talk about like the most dominant athlete of our time, and that's Serena Williams. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen happen in athletics. I wish I knew more about gymnastics so I could put all this in a better perspective for myself, because it feels like you can't come for Serena's crown, but you can have a conversation with the things I read about Simone. Like people who know about gymnastics get visibly excited when they talk about her. Mm-hmm. Like people who are like veterans who've seen it all. They're like, no, this is some special shit. Like watching their eyes light up. It's like watching golf nerds talk about 98 Tiger. It's like, man, the whole world changed that summer. And I wish I could appreciate it more. If you know more about gymnastics, I guess at me. I'll read it. I won't really understand it. I'll try. I'm honest. I don't lie to people on the podcast. Like I feel like me saying that I'll try is a step in the right direction.
But there was it. It's called like oh God, it's called like Stick It. It's like one of those like ABC Family movies, but it's about gymnastics, and I feel like it helped me understand.
Oh, time out. I'll tell you what. I'm gonna need better resources. An ABC Family movie that had like whose gymnastics probably like consultant was like a gymboree owner.
They also had a TV show for a while. It was like, I think the movie inspired a TV show. All I'm saying is I learned a lot about gymnastics. That's it.
Well, I learned something about gymnastics this weekend that wasn't as great. Mary Bono, that's right, the widow of Sonny Bono. Yes, the newly appointed interim president and CEO of USA Gymnastics, after everyone was fired because they let the entire female gymnastics community be abused by a doctor over the course of 30 years. Like, I don't want that to be lost either. She has this job because everyone else got fired because they let Larry Nassar rape their athletes for years. Mary Bono was headed to an event on Friday, the same day she got her new roles, and tweeted a picture of herself blacking out the Nike symbol on her golf shoe. Simone Biles, being the most visible and, as we said, remarkable person involved with USA Gymnastics today, tweeted, mouth drop, don't worry, it's not like we needed a smarter USA Gymnastics president or sponsors or anything. Nike does sponsor USA Gymnastics. And, yeah, she's a former Republican congresswoman, retweeted a response to a tweet that said hashtag boycott Nike last month. And, of course, 5 hours after being called out by our sport's most visible, marketable, and important star, she said, I regret the post and respect everyone's views and fundamental right to express them. This does not reflect how I approach my position at USA Gymnastics. I will do everything to help build with the community an open and safe, positive environment. Now, Shanna, we're talking about sports here. I don't use a different term to describe Ms. Bono's upcoming ended tenure. Will she last a full Scaramucci? Because I think Scaramucci lasted 11 days. She got her job on Friday. She got called up by her biggest star on Saturday, and 5 hours later, she towed the line to her biggest star. We now record on Sunday. As of this recording, she's still employed. Does she last a full mooch?
I'm so upset you called it a full mooch. I'm legit surprised that she still has her job as of this point.
I'm over here refreshing the story, like, is the update with more information, right? She doesn't work here anymore, right?
Okay, the Nike thing. Didn't Nike also just sign like um their first, not their first, but like they just signed somebody who is like disabled, or right?
Oh yeah. They made a big. They it was it's a runner in Oregon.
Yeah.
Yeah, they gave him full sponsorship and scholarship. Yes.
Like I understand the initial horrible racist Kaepernick people when it was announced. But then that commercial came out. And if you actually just look at Nike commercials over the past, I would say like 3 to 5 years,
Mhm.
like some of the most empowering shit ever.
And this is coming from us who are very aware that it's a marketing machine for a big corporation. We can still, on its face, that the marketing has been beautiful.
It's been absolutely amazing. It's like you look at the athletes who they champion. You have Serena, you have Simone, you have Colin, you have the hijabi fencing, and then they created the whole like sports hijab.
Hmm.
Like, I'm sorry, you can be mad, you can talk about their labor practices, all this kind of stuff, but if we're talking about like a moral compass for
Sending a
business,
message, sending a message as a company, because if you're saying advertising to your front door, their front door is positive as shit.
yeah. So you have to be, dim, dumb, and blind, like to even think that that was gonna go over well, and like, and always I think about, it's like, obviously she doesn't care, she's a white woman, but when you think about who you're appealing to, like, look at who supports you. It's the same thing when all of these people with this Star Wars The Last Jedi, and all these people were like, well, I have some legitimate issues with the film, and so let me outline them for you. And I'm like, yeah, but look at the other people who are hopping on your bandwagon. Are those the people you want behind you?
Right.
That's it.
Right. At a certain point when you're doing an argument, you're looking like, who's on my side? Nazis, huh? Well, doesn't feel good. Maybe just pay attention to who agrees with you. Maybe on your face and in your mind, your argument is sound and rational, but you can also realize it's your argument, so you love it more. It's like children. You love
Hmm.
yours more than I'm going to love yours. And when you step outside and say, wait, who else agree? Who else thinks this is a good idea? And all the dumb people raise their hands. Ask your question. Is it still a good idea? Don't love your kids that much. Ideas, whatever, kids too. Um, yeah, it's all bad. And the thing about it is, what people don't realize is the last time that Simone Biles spoke out about something on social media, she tweeted that she didn't want to return to training camps at Crowley Ranch, where she and so many others were sexually abused by Larry Nassar.
Hmm.
Camps at that ranch were canceled almost immediately. She's got the title, man. Look, Bono's got the title. The question now becomes, do you know what that title really limits you to do? Because the most important person in USA Gymnastics is not Miss Bono. It's Simone Biles. And I think, again, while we record right now, she has a job.
Not for long though.
I'm not projecting the future prospects of said job. As of this recording, according to Google, right now that I just checked again, she still has a job. All right, but go ahead.
I just don't understand people who you are not the face of the thing. I get that you are the power behind the thing, but don't piss off the face of the thing. They have more power than you.
Well, let's also talk about this too, because you're right. The face of the thing is the people who are actually doing the thing are more important than the people who say they run it. Because for 2 years, people who say they run the NFL have been telling you that ratings were adversely affected, business was down because of players exercising their First Amendment rights in an outspoken demonstration against the police, the extrajudicial killings of black and brown people by agents of the state. Now, people have conflated that into lots of other things, but I'm telling you right now, that's what it was for. When I see women saying all women should kneel at the national anthem now, I'm like, wait a goddamn second, stop co-opting that as a specific protest for a specific purpose. I had to yell at like 3 people this week about that shit. There's a long report at USA Today. I'm not going to read it all here. It's boring. It's like stat stuff. But the bottom line is there's no appreciable change in NFL ratings due to kneeling. And people say, oh, look at these reports where they say, oh, if you drop the NFL, why was the reason? People say 60% because of kneeling. Those are liars. You may have interviewed them at a tailgate, which shows you that maybe, just maybe, they weren't not watching the NFL. What they showed was good football trumps any kind of politics. Basically, the thing that happened in Trump country is that, yes, sometimes ratings are down. That also coincided with the football team being bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm no longer watching the Atlanta Falcons this season. Not because they kneeled or didn't kneel, or because our owner looks like an old-timey villain during a silent film who would tie him into a train track. That's not why I'm not watching. I'm not watching because the Falcons are bad. They're just bad. They lost 3 games, or 2 back-to-back games at one point, and then last week the debacle against the Steelers, which you know what? It's not what we're doing right now. I apologize. I got a little carried away. The bottom line is the ratings and the consumption of football was in no way adversely affected by these protests. Let's just call them that so I don't have to go on my long-winded spiel again. Let's talk about someone who was affected by these protests, and that's you and me. What do I mean? Our taxpayer dollars paid for something last year, which was a con and a political stunt at the easiest we put. So last year, if you remember, Mike Pence walking glass of warm milk with a mommy fixation, walked out of the Niners-Colts game early because he wanted to take a stand against players who were kneeling against, again, like I said, police violence and racial injustice. We all knew, and it was revealed after the fact, that it was a premeditated stunt because he knew that Eric Reid of the 49ers would be kneeling because he knelt and said he would never stop kneeling. He was the second player after Kaepernick, who's also he's also the co-plaintiff against the NFL in the collusion lawsuit with Colin Kaepernick. He walked out. Mike Pence walked out. But when Mike Pence walks out, it's not just Mike Pence walking out, guys. It's the Vice President of the United States, including the security staff, his personal staff, and, just how much it would cost to fly him in and out. So they said that it all came together, spent about $350,000, including over $250,000 spent on Pence's Air Force 2 flight alone. He cost us money to get the political points to put in that campaign ads.
I hate everyone except for Colin Kaepernick in a trench coat. I do. Here's the thing, Colin's prospering. Like, he has his Nike deal. He looks fabulous in a trench coat. Every black woman on this planet wants to braid his hair. Like, he's prospering. It makes no sense. It's like I'm not watching the NFL, but guess what? I wasn't watching the NFL before. I tune in. My team is the Patriots. We won't talk about that right now. My team is the Patriots. They almost always make it either into the finals or the Super Bowl, which is when I start watching football, if I start watching that season. That's it. And so it's just like you said, if the team is good, people are going to watch. Folks are going to go on Twitter and say they're not watching and then be watching anyway, and they just won't tweet about it. Just like there was a point in time where I, wasn't watching Arrow, but I was just watching it every week and not tweeting about it.
That's how it's like the same way I don't watch Riverdale.
Yeah, anyway. Exactly. See, we all have our things. We all have our lines. A lot of people's lines are extremely fluid, and ratings they didn't go down, so people were still watching.
Yep.
I even with the 49ers game, when the first season when they started kneeling, I remember that there were like lots of tickets available for 49ers games, and people were like, see, it's because people don't want to go to games now that Colin Kaepernick is kneeling. I'm like, 49ers have always been a so-so team. There's always been a lot of tickets
Even better
available.
than that. So that's the plan for the Niners. So I always explain to people this. When a new stadium gets built, they'll invest the first 2 years, or they won't invest the first 2 years because they know that the fans are going to come to the new stadium. That's exactly what happened in San Francisco. They got the new stadium the year after they went to the Super Bowl. They gutted that team, and that way you can maximize your profits because you have low overhead. You're paying your team less, but you got the guaranteed crowds of, ooh, new stadium, shiny thing. What happened is Colin started kneeling at the end of that cycle when people, one, realized the product was bad, and two, the appeal of the new stadium wore off.
Mm-hmm.
It's just economics. And every time I explain to someone who doesn't like think about any kind of sports outside of the way of scores, their heads explode. It makes me want to fight someone. Junior Seau, everything linebacker, Hall of Famer, took his life in 2012 at the age of 43. 6 years later, the Seaus are finally receiving some money as part of the settlement. There's a league class action lawsuit. The Seau family had objected to the league class action lawsuit, which covered up to $4 million for a player because it did not compensate for wrongful death. The terms of the family settlement with the league have not been released yet, but because of the stature of Junior Seau, he was not just an on-the-field personality. He was not just one of the best linebackers ever to do it. He was an ambassador for the game. The NFL used to trot him out for events. I've had drinks with Junior Seau on more than one occasion, and I hope, because of the settlement, I really do hope that they're getting at least their $4 million. And they're also pursuing legal action against the helmet maker. And let's keep in mind that Junior Seau is the outlier here. His family is the outlier. Kids who get these hits don't just get them in the NFL. You get them in Pee Wee football, they get them in high school football, they get them in college football, all of which they never receive a dime of compensation. And I don't know if you've seen it yet, Shanna. I've become like a Hare Krishna about this documentary on HBO right now. It's produced by LeBron James, Steve Stout, and Maverick Carter called Student Athletes. And it follows 5 people in their dealings with the NCAA, from a player who's a top NBA prospect as a senior in high school to a coach who was drummed out of football because he advocated for paying players. That coach is actually the brother of the man who recruited me to Columbia University, Bob Shoop. And while I continue my stance on never telling personal stories of people I personally don't like, I will say that Bob and John Shoop are an example of nature versus nurture, and that's that. I'm glad his family is getting in some way compensated, because that was the one thing that got me, is when the lawsuit, when the class action suit was settled, offering up to $4 million in medical treatment for NFL retired players, associated members who qualified. They did not cover wrongful deaths. And you can say what you want about, I don't know, the larger concept of football, but Junior Seau doesn't drive his car off of a cliff at 43 if he didn't play football.
That whole thing is just really sad, and I see a lot of my friends who have boys like very much so avoiding football as a sport because they
Mm-hmm.
don't want their kid to start, having concussions at age 8. So, and like the thought of my friends' kids, who again I love to death, being being that age, like not that old, and having all sorts of like brain issues because of playing a sport. It's ridiculous that it's like gone on this long. Even the OJ thing, I still contend that like he
No,
has CTE on
no.
top of his rampant narcissism. It can be both.
Both. OJ is just a murderer. Like
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I
I'm
don't
not
think
willing
he.
to. No, him, like people like to sweep him and Aaron, and it's like, no. This is just who these people kind of were. And if CT may have exacerbated it, and maybe we won't
Exactly.
know, but I am, I'll allow a lot of stuff. I'll allow a lot of excuses and things happen, but Nah, him and Aaron Hernandez, those weren't like, oh, because you see it with players where they'll snap in public or like in a public space and like maybe attack someone or like break a glass. These were meditated acts of murder.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think the murders were. I think what people talk about, his ability to go from very affable to very
The mood swings.
angry, the mood swings, I think that is.
Right.
And then I think he's a raging narcissist. So
Yeah,
like
no,
I think
you're right.
that and like maybe a sociopath. But but this
I
is just me, being armchair diagnosis.
podcast diagnosis plays. I'll say this: go back and listen to I listened to a solo show a couple weeks ago called On Power, and I gave some statistics about NCAA player deaths in practice. And I didn't give statistics on high school player deaths because honestly, there's less oversight there. There's a player who did die this season who we've been covering because it happened in Georgia. Dylan Thomas, he died last month in a game playing Peach County. He played for Pike County, and it was revealed this week that he died through of cardiac arrest stemming from head injury. The cardiac arrest was a result of traumatic brain injury due to or near the consequence of a closed head injury. No autopsy was conducted as the parents' request, but that was the cause of death. And that's, I don't know. It's one of those things where, yeah, accidents happen everywhere, and you can get hit by a bus crossing the street, but at the same time, there was no, in reviewing the film, from what people have told me, there's no moment where you see Dylan Thomas get hit or where it's just a substantial or noteworthy hit. And that, for me, is even scarier. And you talk about your friends. My wife and I have had the conversation, and if I have a son, I can't imagine he plays football. And that's me. I got my education. I had a lot of things in my life because of football. It's so funny because when my wife and I are like doing problem solving, like little stuff around the house, I'll approach it from a way that she's like, I've never considered it that way. I'm like, I've never considered anything else in that way because, like, much my approach to problem solving, I'm very much like, okay, let's solve the problem. We'll do a postmortem later. We can fix it. Kind of the way you look at football. We'll fix it in film. We've got to get around it now. We've got to solve the current problem now. We've got to fix the issues in film. And kind of the way I approach certain things in my life, I'm better at certain things because of football, because of athletics. I also know there's other ways to learn those lessons. And a kid going out on a Friday night and playing football and dying, I don't know. It's one of the ones that it will always give me pause. It always slows me down when we consume this stuff because it shouldn't be this way. And we talk about, make football safer, and they are. The steps have been made in the Ivies and the NFL across the country. And I'm not debasing those, and this is not an anti-football podcast. It is a realization that we have to come to kind of recognize there's no such thing as a safe cigarette. They didn't make one. They don't make one. If it was safe, it wouldn't be a cigarette. What's safe football look like? It's not football. It's just not, because a lot of things that attract us to the game are the violence. And we've got to find a way to reconcile that and still, because it's Sunday. I'm not going to watch the Falcons, but I'm going to watch football. I spent my Saturday that we're about to go over very quickly watching football. And we all have those things, like you said, about the Nike, and we know about their labor practices. We all have things that we consume. I have an iPhone. I can't pretend that if this iPhone was made in America, it wouldn't cost a power of 10 more to own.
Every single time somebody says something about Nike's labor practices, I look to see if the post says sent from an iPhone.
Well, the thing is, you say iPhone, that's the catch-all, but like it's sent from any smart device. None of them are made in America. Like none of them. That's why they're so cheap and widely available. And we're all hypocrites on different things, and I will continue to be a hypocrite about football because it scares me, it terrifies me, and I love it. And there's probably something wrong with me on like a physiological level about that, but it's true. I can't avoid it, and we've got to find a way to have fewer Dylan Thomases because it's untenable. Children should not be dying playing this sport. and the deaths are going up. The deaths, because the kids are getting faster and stronger, and because high school football is basically a test kitchen for football concepts. What happens is they started these 7-on-7 camps where teams will like, let's try these routes and these combinations, and they bring them to high school. The high school coaches maybe hired to a college staff when one of the big recruits goes, and that's how their ideas get spread through college football. Now you've got teams like the Eagles and to a lesser extent the Patriots running run-pass options in the NFL because they've been doing it in Texas high school football since 2001.
I was hoping you were going to say that kids are getting faster and stronger because mutant powers, but
look, they did loosen radiation coverages, and everyone got mad at Trump, and I was like, do you want X-Men or do you not want X-Men? Let's just have a conversation. Because I might be here for X-Men. All right, well, that's the end of our topics for the day. Let's get into the college football recap that I'm going to hate to do really quickly. Shanna, bear with me because I have to address a review. I lied at the top of the show. There wasn't any review. 15 hours ago, which means they waited to the end of the Georgia LSU game and sent this review. It's from at the Mets Theory on Twitter. Hunker down, you hairy dog. You misspelled Harry. I will make fun of you every chance I get reading this. It's great to be a Georgia Bulldog, number 2 team in the country. The only team in the East, coming down to lowly Baton Rouge, as Braun would say, catch these hands. If I was petty, I'd bring up how Georgia ran the ball down LSU's throats and decided, hey, let's not do that anymore. Or how having an ineffective quarterback but refusing to use the new guy, they got a little something going on, quarterback controversy, anyone? Oh, how great it was to watch that beat them down. I know Palm enjoyed every second of it. Yours and Petty at the Mets Theory. You ever have those moments where you rethink all your like policies, like 5-star reviews? Like, maybe we don't need reviews. Like, I can just. All right, let's do this. So yesterday, Columbia lost to Penn, and it was a close game. We lost by 4. Lions are someone out of the gate, but hopefully they can right the ship. Georgia went to Baton Rouge around those gumbo-eating, mush-mouth, fake French hillbillies and came away with a loss. Georgia scored 16 points all in the second half and fell 36-16. Joe Burrow passed for 200 yards and had 2 short touchdown runs. If you're wondering who Joe Burrow is, you're not alone. Jake Fromm was bad, 16-34 for 209 and 1 touchdown. This is the game in our preseason preview that I was most worried about. I told everyone, I said, look, Coach O is a psychopath, but he speaks their gumbo. And there's a lot of talent in the Bayou. Like that's the thing about LSU. It never got so bad with Les Miles. They lost the talent that was local. There are more suitors like an A&M or a Resurgent Texas or Alabama trying to sneak in. But basically, if you grew up in Louisiana, you grew up wanting to play at LSU. You wanted to be a Tiger. And they had more horses. Like I don't tell you, like, yes, the review was very funny, but that's a great point. There was an opening in the drive of the game where they just gashed this LSU team for runs. Last week we watched Florida accumulate 200 yards on the ground against them. Wasn't good enough for Georgia. They got too cute in the passing game. People dropping wide open balls. Fromm was off all night and all day, excuse me. It felt like night because I was drinking a lot of whiskey. And they never gave the kid a shot. I think that we're not at quarterback controversy point yet. However, I think a conversation needs to be had. Because with Florida feeling froggy in the East, with their win yesterday over Vanderbilt, come from behind at the last second, we'll get to that in a second. I don't feel as comfortable as I did going into Saturday. And I knew that an LSU team coming off of a home loss, or excuse me, a road loss to Florida would be angry and motivated. And I was right. And I've had to wear this on social media for 24 hours now, and it's not been fun. It's cold in the hell. I did have a friend text me like, hey, Pilot's doing well. I go, what do you mean? He goes, you're getting trolled about your teams you love. The pod's doing well. I'm like, you can go to hell too.
Like, I like that. That was a roundabout troll.
He tried to, really trying to sucker me in there, and it worked. Because I was like, what do you mean? And that was, I fell for it. Like, Shanna, it's one thing to review shows that we love or shows that we don't necessarily love. But it's another thing to come on here, tell everyone about your fanhood, and then watch that fanhood get kicked in the teeth every week.
I mean, people have been horrible about the whole like Luke Cage Iron Fist thing, and it's right now, so I kind of feel your pain. I feel like I understand you.
We're going to move on before I get mad. We're going to move on before I get upset. We're going to run the rest of the SEC, the only conference that matters in the country. Mizzou fell to Alabama 39-10. Someone stopped Alabama. Tua apparently was hurt, but not hurt enough. He went 12 for 22 for 265, 3 touchdowns. Good Lord, we're going to talk some college football later on this month. The midseason report. Florida, as I said earlier, came from behind to beat Vanderbilt 37-27. Tennessee beat Auburn, and Gus Malzahn once a year, baby. Once a year, Gus Malzahn falls on his face, and I can't really applaud because Georgia lost too. At least Georgia lost to a ranked team. Tennessee is awful. A&M beat South Carolina 26-23. Fun wrinkle, when they made the new SEC schedules, they said that everyone had a permanent cross rival, so everyone always played one team from the West. For some reason, no reason at all actually, they paired up South Carolina and Texas A&M, and South Carolina's never won this game. It's 5-0 now for A&M, and South Carolina may be wishing they got paired up with anyone else. Ole Miss beat Arkansas 37-33. Everyone who watched the game was saying Arkansas looked great. I was like, you guys do know Arkansas has been bad in football all season, and they'll find a way to give away the game. They did it in the last 2 minutes, losing 37-33 to Ole Miss. We're going to go to the rest of the top 25 now, but I do want to mention one thing that's happened. Scott Frost, UCF's head coach last year, took him to the mythical, the fake national title, undefeated. He's now 0-6 at Nebraska. And I know he's a former Nebraska player, and I know it's very early in his tenure, and teams get these big buyouts, so you want him to be patient. But I also want you to know that Nebraska's played 129 seasons of football, and they've never started 0-6. I'm not saying they're going to fire him. I'm saying the Frost, I hope you rented instead of bought. Because I can't imagine selling property in Nebraska is that easy. I just don't think there's a lot of buyers. Top 25, rounded out. South Florida beat Tulsa 25-24. Ohio State beat Minnesota 30-14. We've got to do something about Ohio State, guys. Like this. All right. The rest of their schedule's trash. I need Shea Patterson to go full Ole Miss Shea against Ohio State to end this thing, because this is getting fucking ridiculous. They're bad. They're good, but I don't like it. Teams that aren't good but are going to be. I'm 33 years old. I've never lived in a world where Notre Dame was reliably good, but I saw the flash a couple years ago where they made a national title game and then lost to Alabama by 17 touchdowns, because there's a world difference between I'm pretty good and Al-fucking-Bama, and them beating Pitt 14-19. Pitt is 3-4, and that was probably their last hurdle to make the playoff. Notre Dame is going to end up the number 4 team in the nation. They're going to boat race by a number 1 Alabama by about 10 touchdowns. That's a free bet for anyone right now, October 14th. Iowa State beat West Virginia. Will Greer has let me down. I never thought it would happen, 30-14. Oregon beat Washington 30-27. Michigan State jumped up and bit Penn State 21-17. Texas held on against Baylor 23-17. UCF continued to be undefeated as they pulled out against Memphis 31-30. Wisconsin falls to Michigan 38-13. Florida, damn, you already mentioned it. Miami loses to Virginia 13-16. USC beats Colorado 31-20. And that's top 25. People are calling it upset Saturday. That may have something to do with the title. But actually, everything that's happened this entire podcast has just been upsetting. Shanna, please tell people how they can follow you on social media, how they can donate to your Patreon, and remind them again just what that Patreon is for.
You have to feed it. You sound at the end of that.
Just laughing at my pain. Jeez, all right. I hear you.
All right. You can find me on Twitter at Shitty Beaumont. That's SHITTYBONMOTS. You can also find patreon.com/YoungGod. The Twitter is the same thing, Young God Comic. And where else? That's pretty much the places I want you to find me.
That's 100% fair. Also, make sure you listen to the mini review she does over on the Super Tuesday feed here at the MTR Network. That was your show. This is your outro. Be sure to listen to our NBA preview dropping Tuesday morning. See you guys next week.